what do you make of the fact that Jack Smith thought it was so important? He went to the court and said, please at least let me submit something to the public with names redacted so they can read this prior to November 5th.
It shows total desperation on the Biden-Kamala Justice Department's part. They waited nearly 3 years to bring this unprecedented, I would say bogus indictment against President Trump for the non-crime of objecting to a presidential election, which is allowed by the Electoral Count Act of 1887. They made up 4 counts against Trump. 2 of these counts have been struck down in June by the Supreme Court, but that didn't stop Jack Smith from bringing these counts that the court in Fisher said you can't bring, these obstruction counts against Trump that relate to corporate fraud after Enron that Jack Smith has now weaponized against President Trump. And if you read this document, it's very clear this is a political document. Jack Smith knows that he's not going to be able to get this case tried before November 5th. And so, as you said, Megyn, this is trial by paper. This is Jack Smith putting every allegation he can come up with in this 165-page document. Jack Smith knows that Trump can't respond to this. Jack Smith knows this is a one-sided political story, and they're desperate to get this out there. And D.C. Obama judge did gymnastics to allow Jack Smith to do this. This is an unprecedented thing that they've done, that they've allowed this political document to come out before President Trump, as the defendant, filed a motion to dismiss, which is the regular order. And it just shows that this Biden-Kamala special counsel, Jack Smith, and this D.C. Obama judge, Tanya Chutkan, are political actors who are trying to interfere in the 2024 presidential election, something that they are accusing Trump of doing in 2020 and something they say is now a crime.
Yeah, something they indicted Trump for doing. Even Judge Merchan in the New York State business records case against Trump said, I'm going to hold off on the sentencing because I see that there's a presidential election. I mean, you couldn't find a more partisan judge. Even he was like, this is a bridge too far. I know it really would be election interference if I held this sentencing hearing now. But Judge Chutkan, not a qualm. Put it out there, Jack Smith, a one-sided document to which Trump cannot reasonably respond within the next 3 weeks as is due. Even the Jack Smith's defenders have been saying there's no question Trump will need an extension. They waited to file this thing. Then they tried to get, a hurry up procedure established in the court. Trump went to the Supreme Court. It slowed it down. And now it's all along. Jack Smith has shown an urgency to get this tried before the election. He doesn't even try to hide it, Mike, how badly he wants voters to have his side of the story before they go to the ballot box, which is one side of the story, all of which comes with a presumption of innocence for Donald Trump.
And it just shows you that Jack Smith is the political Scud missile that Democrats launch against Republicans. Remember, Jack Smith did this to former Virginia Governor Bob McDonnell. He made up bogus charges of corruption against McDonnell. He won a conviction. That conviction was eventually, years later, overturned by the Supreme Court 8-0. It would have been 9-0, but Justice Scalia passed away. But the political damage was done. They're trying to do the same play here with Jack Smith and President Trump. They know that this case is a dog. They know that 2 of these 4 counts have already been struck down by the Supreme Court in the Fisher decision. They know that presidential immunity. Yeah,
that's what's crazy.
Two
of the courts were struck down in another Supreme Court case, and Jack Smith did not strip them from his case.
Yeah, he put him in the superseding indictment, which is just unbelievable. And it's shameful, and we expect this from Jack Smith because we know his record. He's a partisan clown, right? But this D.C. Obama judge, Tanya Chutkan, it's shameful what she's doing because the Supreme Court in the presidential immunity decision, a 6-3 decision in June written by the Chief Justice, John Roberts, not exactly a Trump supporter, not wearing MAGA hats, doesn't have Trump signs in his yard, I guarantee you that. He even reprimanded Judge Shucken for rushing this monumental case of presidential immunity, because the Chief Justice understands this is so much bigger than President Trump. This is so much bigger than one election. This is about the presidency. If you can throw a president of the United States in prison for his official acts, you're going to destroy the presidency and therefore destroy our republic. And the Chief Justice understands that, and that hasn't stopped. I mean, this is like the Freddy Krueger case, Megyn. They've had both of their arms cut off. They have their eyeballs blown off. They have their leg blown off, and they're just bloody and wounded, but they just keep coming back. It's like Freddy Krueger part 6 with this superseding indictment with Tanya Shucken and Jack Smith. Is it like Jason and Freddy? This like part 15. This case is a dog, but it just won't die.
You know what it is, Mike? I mean, I will say it's obviously an attempt to manipulate our feelings in advance of this debate. Like, he's bad. He did bad things. And I, as somebody who believes Trump lost, and as I said in the intro, I hated his behavior around J6, but I've gotten past it. And I'm a lot more worried about our country than that episode of Trump's bad behavior. I really am. I think it's far more egregious and evil to let 20 million illegals into this country to murder American citizens, rape little girls, and we could go down the list of all the things, than Trump's personality problems around accepting a loss. But they're trying to tap into people like me who are independent voters. Obviously, I'm in Connecticut, so my vote doesn't really count. But I'm saying, like, in the swing states, they're trying to remind people like me, let's say women in particular, who hated the January 6th story, all of it. He's bad. He's bad. He's bad. None of this has to do with the law or anything he's actually been charged with. The whole case is not really about the law. It's to keep this in the news and try to play on our heartstrings. And, you know, this is why they don't talk about Lake and Riley. They talk about Trump and a mean tweet or some sort of callous behavior. And look at what it's already led to. That we put together a little media montage, making the most of this filing. Check this out, Satu.
Personal, private, criminal interest in that moment. They just cover every single angle of it in a way that it just feels like a straitjacket.
It's not, I think, particularly useful or edifying for me to say this, but I'll say it, which is that it did make me enraged at the Supreme Court all over again. I mean,
I would recommend saving some rage for their next decision on this very same.
Well, that's a good point, Rachel.
But importantly, when they do that, they will at least be unable to run away from the factual contentions as laid out by Jack Smith, right?
As I said, metaphorically turn to any page in the Smith filing and treason will fall off the shelf and hit you in the effing head. There may never be a Trump trial because a Trump election would erase the chance of it, and with that would erase the entirety of justice in the United States of America, and with that erase the entirety of the United States of America.
Okay, so treason and the U.S. of America goes away if you read this indictment. Your thoughts on all of that, Mike?
It's like watching a therapy session of Trump deranged lunatics. And what's so funny about watching this is they so desperately want real Americans in real America to actually believe that Trump's the gravest threat to democracy after Biden and Kamala tried to bankrupt Trump, throw him in prison for the rest of his life, take him off the ballot so the American people don't have a choice, take away his Secret Service protection, underfund it twice, and almost have him killed twice. And when that all didn't work, they had Kamala Harris, who did not receive one Democrat primary vote in her life for president, gut Joe Biden in a bloodless coup and throw out 14 million Democrat primary votes and install Kamala Harris as their nominee. And they want to lecture Donald Trump and his supporters about democracy. Are you kidding me?
Whose mental infirmities she's been covering up and continues to cover up. You know, I was thinking about it. So maybe they're just genuinely really upset about J6. Maybe they're just, you know, let's go with that. What happened before J6? What happened before the November 2020 election? Were they respectful towards Trump? Did they accept that he won the 2016 election and was the rightful president, and where they could work with him. No, they were talking about impeaching him from day one of his presidency. They made up all the Russia BS. They had the fake impeachment over what Trump calls the perfect phone call with Ukraine. They spent the entire 4 years trying to ruin his presidency and say he had committed impeachable and illegal acts the whole time. So people really need to keep their reaction to what happened on January 6th, which was a very bad, unfortunate protest, in perspective. How many very bad, horrible protests have the Democrats foisted on this country over the last 4 or 5 years without apology, without any accountability, never mind an impeachment and multiple criminal charges? None. Absolutely none. So all of this is so rich. Having said all that, let's just go through some of the points because they're everywhere. And I'd love to get your take on it as a lawyer. Okay. One of the big reveals is that Jack Smith used forensic data to track Trump's moments in the White House on J6. And the New York Times reporting and the indictment or the brief shows as follows. Trump was sitting alone in the dining room off the Oval Office at the time the riots were unfolding. According to the brief, forensic data shows he was using the Twitter app on his phone and watching Fox News. Trump posted to Twitter that Mr. Pence lacked the courage to do what was right. The mob became enraged at the vice president. Okay, we knew all of this. I guess we didn't know he was in the dining room. And the Secret Service took him to a secure location. An aide to Mr. Trump rushed in to alert him to the peril Mr. Pence was in, but Mr. Trump looked at the aide and said only, "So what?" according to the brief. All right, so do you want to take that one, Mike?
So we have hearsay testimony, and President Trump can't respond to it because this is a one-sided document. It's a one-sided political document, 165 pages of one-sided evidence that Trump can't respond to. He can't bring in that aide and cross-examine that aide. He can't bring in his own evidence to know whether it's true or not. And guess what? It is not a crime to be a jerk, right? And if it were a crime to be a jerk, I think that just about every politician in Washington, D.C., except for Chuck Grassley, my former boss, the nicest guy in D.C., everyone else, I think, would be in prison if it were a crime to be a jerk. And so that's the problem with this whole case. You have to separate the political and the personal, as you said, Megyn, versus what's actually criminal. What did Trump do on January 6th that was criminal? And the answer is nothing, unless you have evidence that Trump incited the riot on January 6th. And that evidence does not exist because Jack Smith has not charged him with inciting the riot. Trump did not and could not have committed a crime on January 6th.
Kamala Harris is proposing massive tax hikes right now, an almost 40% top income tax rate, almost 40% on top of what you pay for the state. 7% increase to the corporate tax, a capital gains tax on unrealized gains for some. And then there's the fact that she's proposing to add almost $2 trillion to a current $2 trillion deficit. You might be thinking it's time to make more of your savings tax sheltered and inflation sheltered for that matter. That's why I want to tell you about Birch Gold Group. Birch Gold will assist you in converting an existing IRA or 401k into an IRA in gold. And the best news is you don't pay 1 penny out of pocket. Just text the letters MK to 989898 and get a free info kit on gold. There's no obligation, just information on fortifying your savings before the crazy reality hits. Well, before the crazy really hits. Birch Gold has an A+ rating with the Better Business Bureau and thousands of happy customers. Just text MK to the number 989898 for your free info kit today. Thanks so much for watching. If you like what you just saw, hit the subscribe button for more clips and full episodes.